This is a story about an island that has killed every outsider who has tried to reach it, and the young man who went anyway. North Sentinel Island sits in the Bay of Bengal, roughly 56 kilometers off the coast of the Andaman Islands, a small green jewel surrounded by shallow reefs and open sea. From the air, it looks like paradise, dense forest fringed by white sand beaches, clear water, untouched. From a boat, if you get close enough, it looks like something else entirely. Armed figures on the tree line, arrows nocked, eyes watching. The Sentinelese have lived on that island for an estimated 60,000 years. They are, by most assessments, the direct descendants of the first human populations to migrate out of Africa. A living continuity with the deepest reaches of human prehistory, occupying the same small piece of land their ancestors occupied before agriculture existed, before writing existed, before the concept of civilization had formed anywhere on Earth. Nobody knows how many of them there are. Estimates range from 15 to 500. Nobody has been close enough, recently enough, and survived the encounter to produce a reliable count. What is known, documented in incident after incident across the better part of 2 centuries, is that they do not want visitors. Not the British colonial administrators who attempted contact in the 1800s and returned with kidnapped Sentinelese who died of disease before they could be returned. Not the Indian government anthropologists who spent years in the 1960s and 70s approaching by boat and leaving coconuts in the surf, getting close enough for brief non-violent exchanges before the relationship soured and the arrows resumed. Not the helicopter crew that flew over after the 2004 tsunami to check whether anyone on the island had survived. A lone bowman stood on the beach and fired an arrow at the aircraft. Not the 2 Indian fishermen whose boat drifted ashore in 2006 after they fell asleep while illegally fishing nearby. Their bodies were found on the beach by a Coast Guard helicopter, the Sentinelese visible on the beach still carrying bows. The island is protected under Indian law. It is illegal to travel within 3 nautical miles of its shores. The legal framework exists not only to protect outsiders from the Sentinelese, but to protect the Sentinelese from outsiders, specifically from disease. A population that has had no contact with the outside world for 60,000 years has had no exposure to the pathogens that the outside world carries. A common cold carried onto that island by a well-meaning visitor could theoretically kill every person on it. The isolation is not just cultural, it is biological. The Sentinelese immune systems are built for the diseases of North Sentinel Island and nothing else. Every outsider who sets foot on that beach is a potential extinction event. John Allen Chau knew all of this. He knew it in detail. He had researched it. He had prepared for it in his way, getting vaccinated, quarantining himself before his visits, taking precautions he believed would make him safe to approach. He was 26 years old, an evangelical Christian missionary from Alabama, and he had been preparing to reach the Sentinelese for years. He believed the island was, as he wrote in his diary, Satan's last stronghold on earth. He believed the people on it needed the gospel of Jesus Christ. He believed God had called him specifically to bring it to them, and he was willing to die for that belief. He said so, explicitly, in writing. He arrived in the Andaman Islands in October 2018, established himself in Port Blair, and spent weeks preparing. He recruited local fishermen to take him out by boat. He assembled a contact kit, picture cards, gifts, medical supplies, a fishing rod. He practiced phrases in Xhosa, a click language he had studied in the hope that its sounds might bear some resemblance to whatever language the Sentinelese spoke. He wrote in his diary every day, working through his theology and his fear and his conviction in equal measure. On November 15, 2018, he made his first approach. The fisherman dropped him off in a kayak within sight of the beach. He paddled toward shore. The Sentinelese appeared on the tree line. A young boy fired an arrow that pierced the waterproof Bible Chau was holding against his chest. He retreated to the boat. He came back the next day. This time he paddled closer, sang worship songs, tried to communicate. The Sentinelese watched him, and some of them, according to his diary, seemed curious, even amused. They didn't fire. He retreated again when their mood shifted. He came back the day after that. On November 16th, he told the fishermen to leave without him. He kayaked to shore carrying his contact kit and his Bible, and stepped onto the beach of North Sentinel Island alone. The fishermen waited offshore, That evening, they saw figures on the beach, and they saw John Chau's body being dragged along the sand. They turned the boat around and returned to Port Blair. When they came back the next morning, they saw, at a distance too far to intervene, what appeared to be a grave being dug on the beach. They went back to Port Blair and gave Chau's diary to his friend, a local Christian preacher, who passed it to Chau's family in the United States. Indian authorities opened a murder investigation. They attempted several times to recover Chau's body, sending police boats toward the island, bringing the fishermen as witnesses to help locate the approximate burial site. Each time, armed Sentinelese appeared on the beach, bows raised, and the boats withdrew. An anthropologist who was part of the recovery effort eventually concluded that attempting to retrieve the body was not worth the risk of a violent confrontation that could harm both the recovery team and the Sentinelese themselves. The attempts were abandoned. John Allen Chau's body remains on North Sentinel Island. He asked in his diary that if he died, his body be left there. That request, at least, has been honored. The reaction to his death was immediate and polarized in a way that told you more about the world watching than it did about the island he died on. Some Christian groups declared him a martyr. Survival International, the organization that campaigns for the rights of uncontacted peoples, called his visits an act of potential genocide, pointing out that his presence on that beach, regardless of his intentions, could have introduced pathogens to a completely immunologically defenseless population. Twitter had opinions. 4,000 people left fake reviews of North Sentinel Island on Google. His father, speaking to The Guardian, described what his son had done as the product of extreme Christianity and called his death not unexpected. What the argument mostly missed was the question that sat underneath all of it, unresolved and probably unanswerable. The Sentinelese made their position clear at every encounter in their history. The arrows were not ambiguous. The bodies on the beach were not ambiguous. Their answer to every approach from every direction in every era of recorded contact has been the same. They have chosen their isolation. They have defended it with their lives repeatedly. They have done this consistently enough that the Indian government has built a legal framework around the assumption that they mean it. What John Allen Chau believed was that he had something they needed more than they needed to be left alone. What he could not account for was the possibility that the Sentinelese from their side of that beach were not looking at a man who had come to save them. They were looking at an outsider who had kept coming back after being shot at, who had absorbed arrow fire and returned, who had sung at them and refused to leave, who had walked toward them on a beach where the last people who had arrived uninvited had not left again. They could not know his intentions. They could only see his actions. His actions looked, from where they were standing, like every other incursion in their history. The island is still protected. The law is still in place. The Sentinelese are still there, behind their tree line, doing what they have done for 60,000 years. Occasionally, a boat strays too close and figures appear at the edge of the forest with bows raised, and the boat retreats, and the island returns to its silence. Nobody goes there. Nobody tries. For now. If you enjoy bizarre true stories like this, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. See you on the next one.